Edith was 65 years old and had a kitchen that smelled of her mother. It wasn't imagination. It was the thyme she grew on the windowsill, the same variety in the same kind of terracotta pot, watered in the same way she had learned by watching her mother's hands on an afternoon in childhood she hadn't known she was storing forever. There were other things too. The way she folded the edge of the tablecloth before putting it away, a specific gesture, practically unnecessary, that she had been reproducing for decades without knowing where it came from, until her daughter asked why she folded it that way, and she had no immediate answer. The habit of leaving a lamp on when someone was coming home late. The way she listened, tilting her head slightly to the right, with an attention that made people feel what they were saying mattered. Edith had inherited no money, no property of measurable value. She had inherited gestures. Ways of being in the world that her mother had practiced for decades, and that had passed to her not through formal instruction, but through shared living, through years of quiet presence that had left marks deeper than anything written on paper. She sometimes thought about this while standing at the sink in the early morning, watching the first light touch the thyme leaves. There were inheritances nobody appraised. No solicitor recorded them. No bank held them. No one divided them among relatives after a funeral. And yet, they could shape a life more faithfully than anything placed in a will. Her mother had been gone for 12 years, and still, on certain mornings, Edith found her everywhere. Not as a ghost, not as something frightening or unfinished, as a continuation, as a familiar movement in her own hands, as a phrase she said without planning to, as the instinct to put the kettle on when someone looked tired, as the quiet certainty that care did not always need to announce itself in order to be real. Edith's daughter was called Naomi. She was 40 years old, lived in a modern flat in the city center, and had grown up finding her mother's house excessively full of things. The terracotta pots, the tablecloths folded in that particular way, the small rituals that structured Edith's days with a regularity Naomi had long considered unnecessary. When she was younger, Naomi had mistaken those rituals for stubbornness. She had thought her mother kept things because she did not know how to move with the times. The old tablecloths, the handwritten recipe cards, the terracotta pots, the wooden spoon with a darkened handle, the lamp in the hallway, always left on when someone was expected. To Naomi, for many years, these things had simply been old. Useful, perhaps, sentimental, certainly, but old. She had changed her mind gradually, not all at once. It had begun one morning when she noticed she was folding the edge of a tea towel before putting it in the drawer. She had stopped midway through the gesture, looked at her own hands, and stood there for a moment she couldn't measure. Her mother's hands. She was making her mother's gesture. She finished folding, put the tea towel away, and spent the rest of the day with a softness in her chest she hadn't expected. After that, she began noticing other things. The way she left a lamp on in the hallway of her flat when a friend was coming over late. The way she touched someone's arm lightly before asking if they were all right. The way she tilted her head when listening carefully, as though her body had learned attention before her mind had named it. She had spent years trying to become her own person, and she had. But now she was beginning to understand something else. Becoming yourself does not mean becoming untouched by those who loved you first. Sometimes the people we love remain not because we hold on to them tightly, but because they have already become part of how we move through the world. On a Sunday visit, Naomi had told her mother. Edith listened with that attention, head tilted slightly to the right. Did Gran do it that way too? Naomi asked. She did, and probably her mother before her, said Edith. These things pass without anyone noticing. Naomi was thoughtful. I'm afraid of forgetting, she said finally. The things about her, the way she was. Memories get less clear over time, and I'm afraid one day I won't be able to remember properly. Edith was quiet for a moment. The button had come from a navy coat her mother wore every winter for nearly 15 years. Edith remembered the sound of that coat being taken from the peg by the door, the faint smell of cold air it carried back into the house. The recipe was for a soup her mother made when someone was unwell, though the ingredients were simple enough to seem almost meaningless unless you had once been comforted by them. The photograph showed her mother standing beside a garden gate, squinting into the sun with one hand raised, not posing properly, not trying to be remembered, and perhaps that was why Edith loved it. Naomi listened to each explanation with an attention Edith recognized, the same attention she herself had given when her own mother had done the same, years ago, with different objects, but with the same quality of something that needed to be passed on before it was lost. "I want you to know these stories," said Edith. "Not now, not in a rush, but I want you to know them." "I want to know them," said Naomi. And there was something in the way she said it that told Edith the time of hurried visits had passed, that her daughter was arriving differently now, more curious, more present, more interested in what lay beneath the surface of the mother she had thought she knew. They stayed there longer than either had expected, the wooden box open between them. Naomi picked up the handkerchief carefully. "Do you ever feel strange keeping things like this?" she asked. "Things so small?" Edith thought about it. "No," she said. "I think small things are often where life hides itself best." Naomi looked down at the handkerchief again, and something in her softened. She had been raised in an age that measured so much by usefulness, efficiency, space, clarity. But here, in her mother's room, she understood that some things deserved to be kept, not because they were useful, but because they helped love remain touchable. Edith still grows the thyme on the windowsill. Every morning, before the kettle, she waters it. It's a gesture that takes 2 minutes and that connects her, in a way she can't fully explain, to a chain of women who tended plants on windowsills before her, and who will, perhaps, continue after. She understood the fear. She had felt it too, in the years after her mother died. At first, she had tried to hold everything deliberately, the sound of her voice, the exact way she laughed, the feel of her hand, the stories she told while cooking. She had tried to keep memory intact, as though love depended on perfect preservation. But memory had its own way of surviving. Some details softened, some edges blurred, and yet the essence remained strangely alive. "You won't forget everything," she said. "The most important things don't go. They stay in you in ways you don't control. They appear in your hands, in the way you listen, in the small choices you make without knowing why." Naomi looked at her mother. "Like the thyme on the windowsill?" Edith smiled. "Like the thyme on the windowsill." Naomi turned toward the small plant. The leaves were delicate, almost ordinary. Nothing in them announced importance. And yet there they were, a living thread between 3 women, perhaps more. A plant on a windowsill holding a story larger than itself. For the first time, Naomi did not see the thyme as one of her mother's habits. She saw it as a language. There was a small wooden box in the drawer of Edith's bedside table. Inside were small objects, a button from her mother's coat, a recipe written in handwriting she had memorized but sometimes needed to see, a faded photograph, an embroidered handkerchief that had been used on an important occasion she could sometimes almost but not quite fully remember. Objects of no value to anyone else, which carried for her a weight not proportional to their size. She had shown the box to Naomi that afternoon. She explained each object, not the object itself, but what it held, the story it kept, the moment it represented. Last week, Naomi came to the house with a small thyme plant she had bought without quite knowing why, only because she had passed a garden stall and something had pulled at her. Edith showed her how to plant it in terracotta, how to water it, how to tell when it needs more light. Naomi listened with her head tilted slightly to the right. They both noticed at the same moment, looked at each other, laughed that laugh which is half surprise and half recognition, because that is how it works. Not in legally documented inheritances, not in objects of measurable worth, in the time that passes from windowsill to windowsill, in the gesture that hands reproduce without the mind needing to remember, in the way of tilting your head when someone speaks, which comes from so far back that no one can trace the origin anymore. A few days later, Naomi sent Edith a photograph from her flat. The little thyme plant sat on her own windowsill now, still small, still adjusting to the new light. Beside it was a lamp, switched on though the evening had not yet fully darkened. Edith looked at the photograph for a long time. She did not cry at first. She simply sat with the phone in her hand, feeling something move quietly through her. Not sadness exactly, though sadness was there. Not only happiness either. It was the feeling of seeing continuity made visible, of knowing that her mother had not ended with her, that something had passed through Edith and was now taking root in Naomi's life too. Later that evening, Naomi called. "I watered it this morning before work," she said. "Good," said Edith. "And I folded the tea towels your way." Edith smiled. "My mother's way." "Our way then," said Naomi. And there it was. Not a grand declaration, not a ceremony, only two words that made room for everyone who had come before them. Our way. What remains of those we love is not only what we keep in small wooden boxes.
It is what they left in us, without either of us knowing it was happening. It is the soup we make when someone is ill, because someone once made it for us. The lamp left on, the plant watered, the tablecloth folded, the listening posture. The small acts of care that travel through families quietly, without asking to be called legacy. Edith is 65 now. Naomi is 40. The time grows in two kitchens. And somewhere in both of them, Edith's mother remains. Not perfectly, not as she was. Memory never preserves anyone whole in the way we wish it could. But love does not need perfect memory to continue. It finds other routes. It becomes instinct, gesture, habit, tenderness. A way of standing near the sink in the morning, with a plant in the light, and feeling, without needing to explain it, that you are not alone in your own life. Naomi understands that now. When she waters the thyme, she sometimes thinks of her grandmother's hands, then her mother's, then her own.
3 generations, perhaps more, gathered silently in one ordinary gesture. And Edith, in her own kitchen, still waters hers too. The two plants grow separately, but from the same tenderness. If you know someone who might need to hear this today, perhaps this is a gift worth sharing.